of February 17th, 2025 to order. Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Here.
Lorik.
Here.
Alderman Ritz is excused. Alderwoman Marshall. Here. Gale.
Here.
Guzekowski.
Here. Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Alderman Kirkowski, would you start us off?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 3 is the approval of minutes of February 4th, 2025. I'll give everybody a moment to take a look. You're satisfied, there's no errors, omissions, corrections, or discussion? Motion, please.
Marshall moves to approve the minutes of February 4th, 2025.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call?
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye. Item 4 is consideration of a request for a conditional use permit for outdoor storage, Kalik Building Services, and an existing business located at 3834 East Putes. Catherine, would you please read that in the record?
Certainly. Public hearing number 1 is to consider a request for a conditional use permit for outdoor storage permanent at Kalik Building Services, an existing business located at 3834 East Putes Road. Applicant is Mohammed Kalik, Kalik Building Services. Property owner, Kalik Building Services LLC, a Wisconsin LLC company. There follows the legal description. Date of notice, January 22nd, 2025.
Great, thank you, Catherine. Christy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Christy Lane, Community Development Director for the City of Oak Creek. The first item before you for public hearing is for a property that is zoned manufacturing, and it's for permanent outdoor storage of shipping containers in the rear or north end of the building. The aerial before you depicts and highlights the subject subject property, and the property owner is proposing to store shipping containers in the back for the product of the business. In order to satisfy staff recommendations and Plan Commission recommendations as well, the property owner will install some landscaping in the front along Putes Road and also have screening a 6-foot high composite fence with steel posts on both sides of the building, the east and west, to screen the shipping containers from view. Just a side note that was discussed at the Plan Commission meeting, the property owner, while they own this parcel that's highlighted here, they actually also recently purchased the property that encompasses it to the north and the west. It's one parcel that kind of surrounds this particular parcel. It was once owned by Milwaukee County. It was foreclosed on by Milwaukee County and then recently purchased by this property owner. The intent is to someday expand the business and into that parcel, and they would do a certified survey map. However, there is contamination, environmental contamination they purchased without necessarily knowing that. And so there are restrictions and limits to what improvements can be done on that parcel at the moment because they are going through the environmental remediation requirements from the DNR. So just wanted to make note, a neighbor came to the Plan Commission meeting, asked that some of the, I think it was a boat, be removed from that parcel. The applicant property owner said that they would happily remove that. And again, this is a 2024 aerial, but it's been cleaned up even since this aerial has been taken. The 2022 aerial is quite atrocious. So I found the 24 aerial on Milwaukee County's website, but just a side note about what's going on around it. So the shipping containers would be stored, again, on the very north end of this building with screening and fencing that would go pretty much from the building to the east and then the building to the west to screen from view of the street. The conditions and restrictions highlighted that, again, only the areas designated in the site plan in the rear north end of the building would be allowed for the outdoor storage, and the storage will be limited to a maximum of 4 8x40 shipping containers and 4 8x20 shipping containers, and that the fencing must remain in good condition. With that, the Plan Commission did recommend approval at their January 14th meeting, and we've received no objections to date.
Thank you, Christie. As this is a public hearing, I will make 3 calls. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach the podium, give your name and address. This will be the first call. Second call, anybody wishing to speak on item 4, please approach podium, give your name and address. Third and final call on the public hearing on item 4. If you wish to speak, please approach the podium. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and we will go on to the council. I'll open it up to the council members. Questions, comments?
Christy, can you go back to the
Then I think at the public hearing, the other issue that came up was also the brightness of the sign, which the owner did
Yes.
concede to turn down.
Yes, you're right. A neighbor did inquire about the brightness of the sign. I'll make a note to follow up with the property owner to see how successful they've been with the sign company for that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dan?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Christie, do you know, is this the new owner, existing owner, has owned this property since a while, do you know?
They've owned it a few years. It's been pretty recent.
Okay, so, given the pictures we see, there's been a progression, but it's been a free-for-all on the property from what they've had there. So
Yeah,
we're gonna,
that's kind of a dated picture. Those cars you
yeah.
see in the immediate footprint.
but even the one he's got there, they're across property
Yeah.
lines there, even on this picture.
To the north
2024,
and-
so
Yeah, you're correct.
I
To the
understand,
north
but
and to the
still.
west, he acquired that property, and
Yep.
as she said, they're working with the county to start
But
to
this
remediate and clean it
particular
up.
CSM regarding this particular piece of parcel,
Correct.
make sure we're holding them to what they've said they're gonna do here.
Yeah, the
I know
condition.
it's an isolated property, but given the history of the parcel next door,
This actually started with a code enforcement violation. So it's on Tamira's radar and will continue to be.
Yeah, it was already in motion. When I did go by there, those vehicles, at least on the property in the blue, don't exist today. Still looks kind of bad to the west.
what else?
We're working on it. So, Steve?
Christy, you may not know the answer to this, but it just might make notes in the future. These shipping containers, are they going to be like used containers that are procured from companies that don't need them anymore and they're going to be sitting in the back of the property? And I guess I'm concerned about the aesthetics of what these things are going to look like back there, whether it's going to look like a storage or junkyard, really. They won't be, obviously with the fence, they may not be seen from the street, but still.
I think I can pull up. I think that those shipping containers are actually perhaps out there.
I think he had a rendering.
Make this.
I mean, there's
picture
certainly a market
bigger.
for these things and, be used wherever, but. I mean, you get my point on,
Yes, certainly. I'm just sorry. I'm trying to see if I can.
for black.
They're black. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that they're
okay.
black.
All right.
But
Well, if they become an issue,
I
the
will-
the NPO will take care of it if there's any issues out there.
Yes,
obviously.
correct.
So, okay,
hopefully with the screening, you won't even see them, though. That's the intent of the screening,
Yeah.
hopefully.
okay, thank you.
Chris, anything? No. Greg? Okay, if there's no further discussion, motion.
Marshall moves to approve resolution number 1255-021725, approving the conditional use permit for outdoor storage permanent of storage shipping containers on the property at 3834 East Buttes Road.
Guzekowski, a second?
Roll call?
Alderwoman Marshall?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
Guzekowski?
Aye.
Kirkowski?
Aye.
Lorik?
Aye. And item 6, again, public hearing, consider a conditional use for an animal daycare recreation kennel boarding shelter at Houndstown, USA. It is located at 7126 South Miller Way, Suite 101 and 102. Catherine?
Public hearing number 2 is to consider a request for a conditional use permit for an animal daycare, recreation, and kennel boarding shelter at Houndstown, USA, a proposed business to be located at 7126 South Millers Way, Suite 101 and 102. Applicant is Andrew Cromie, Cromie Corporation. Property owner is 517 East Rawson LLC. There follows the legal description. Date of notice, January 22nd, 2025.
Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Christy Lane, Community Development Director. The item before you this evening with this public hearing is for an animal daycare, recreation, and a kennel boarding shelter. Those uses do require a conditional use permit. This is the St. John's property that's under construction on the south side of Rawson. It's currently zoned LM1, light manufacturing. The proposed user before you this evening is applying to occupy about 6,000 square feet of the 39,000 square foot building on the far north end. And what they'll be doing is providing doggy daycare services along with kenneling 24 hours. They are proposing to construct a sound dampening wall, which will be constructed parallel to the demising wall to hinder sound from the animals for tenants that abut this particular use. Dogs will not be taken outside for any reason. All their activity will be confined to the inside of this particular tenant space. The floor plan includes 6 play areas, which are highlighted in the pink. The kennels are highlighted in yellow. And then there's a grooming area and, of course, an small office and lobby. Users will be dropping the animals off. This entire development, the St. John's development, went through site landscaping architectural review, and parking was analyzed at that time for prospective uses, which varied with retail and commercial and light manufacturing. With this particular use, it's going to be a drop-off, pickup, quick come and go. The clients won't be staying for long term, so parking was not a concern during the Plan Commission review. The facility will be staffed 6:30 to 7, Monday through Friday, 7 to 5 Saturdays, and 11 to 1 Sundays. But the actual kenneling will be 24/7, 365 days a year. Pickup and drop-off will not occur on major holidays, however. At full capacity, 90 dogs could be in the facility at one time, but they're expecting more like 25 pickup and drop-offs daily. The conditions and restrictions included the sound dampening walls, as mentioned previously. Also note in the conditions and restrictions that no outdoor play area activity is permitted, including dog runs or play areas, and then outdoor storage is prohibited. With that being said, the Plan Commission recommended approval at their January 14th meeting, and we received no objections to date.
Great. Thank you, Christy. Does the applicant want to say anything, or should we just take it to council? Okay. First, I will call on the public hearing, though, if there's anybody wishing to speak. This is a public hearing. I will make 3 calls. This will be the first. Second call, anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium, name and address. Third and final call. We'll now close the public hearing and go on to consideration for resolution for that conditional use permit. Go to council. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, the hours of operation end at 5 o'clock, so will there be any employees in the building overnight with those dogs? I don't know if we require it or not, but from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m., that's 10 hours of dogs in kennels, and I know my beagle wouldn't like that.
Would the applicant please?
Yeah, I think Mr. Cromie might be more
appropriate to answer.
appropriate to answer the operational question.
Name and address, sir.
Yep. Andy Cromie, 4791 West Bearclaw Court, Franklin, Wisconsin, the applicant. There will not be overnight staffed. It's very typical of typical dog cares that or dog care centers that you see anywhere. So yes, dogs, well, we don't allow them outside, so they will be going to the restroom inside. We'll be taking care of cleaning all of that up appropriately, but it will not be staffed overnight.
Okay, so the dogs are in their kennels. You have 24/7 boarding of dogs, right?
Correct. Yep.
All right, so they'll be in their kennels from 5 p.m. until 7 a.m. Or later,
Typically,
depending on when you get to
during
them
the
in
week,
morning.
we staff until about 7, so between 5 and 7, yeah, they'll be going in there, getting fed, doing whatever, clean up before we go, and then we'll be back in the morning to get them all cleaned up again, feed them for breakfast, and into the play areas.
It's a long time to have a dog in a kennel, I guess. Huh. That's my personal opinion. 10 hours.
Andy, do you have a remote surveillance center?
We have closed circuit television inside, but it is sprinklered as well.
And is anyone actually watching the animals overnight?
No.
Anyone else? Okay. We did discuss that at Plan Commission. Some of those same concerns came up. And the surveillance, but apparently that is kind of industry standard. We weren't really aware of. They're also under the limit of allowable dogs by ordinance that we allow at a facility such as this, just for reference. If there's no further discussions or questions, motion.
Kirkowski make a motion to, sorry, I have to get to my part, number 6. Kirkowski will make a motion to approve a conditional, oh, here it is, 7. I'm sorry. Kirkowski make a motion to adopt resolution number 12556-021725, approving a conditional use permit for animal daycare, recreation, and kennel boarding shelter for suites 101 through 102 on the property at 7126 South Millers Way. Thank you, Greg.
Clark seconds. Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
And item 8 is public hearing consideration of a conditional use permit. Amendment for a conversion of operations from coal to LNG and the construction of related equipment on the facilities at We Energy's Elm Road Generating Station located at the address listed. And I will leave that to Catherine to read all those addresses. Catherine?
Public hearing number 3 is to consider a request for a conditional use permit amendment for conversion of operations from coal to LNG and construction of related equipment facilities at the We Energy's Elm Road Generating Station located at 4431, 4451, 4503, 4513, 4541, 4541, we have a duplicate there, 4651, 4751, and 4801 East Oakwood Road, 4401 East Elm Road, and 10640, 10770, 10800, 10900, 10920, 10940, 11002, 11002R, 11050, 11050R, 11060 South Chicago Road. Applicant is Ali Witkowski, We Energies. Property owners is Wisconsin Electric Power Company. There follows legal description. Date of notice is January 22nd, 2025.
Thank you, Catherine. Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Christy Lane, Community Development Director. That duplicate 4541, the second address is actually supposed to have an R. We did correct that in the resolution, just for the notation for the minutes. The item before you for public hearing this evening is for a conditional use permit amendment for the conversion of operations from coal to liquefied natural gas and the construction of related equipment and facilities at the We Energies Elm Road facility. The properties are zoned M1 manufacturing. They did receive a conditional use permit in 2003 for coal operations, hence the need to amend that conditional use permit for the change in operations to LNG. The proposed amendment for major utility is the category in our zoning codes list today of permitted and conditional uses. They do intend on converting all units to natural gas by the end of 2032. The coal piles will be removed and a large main pile will be replaced with a new LNG storage tank. The conversion includes the construction of 5 natural gas-fired combustion turbines, or CTs. The conditions and restrictions are for a public utility use. Again, that's the category in today's zoning code. Operations will continue 24/7, 365 days a year. The 2003 detailed conditions and restrictions carry over, and they are referred to in the current conditions and restrictions and in the resolution. Some items just to note in that 2003 conditions and restrictions are easements, construction hours, shifts, water supply, traffic on to remain on Highway 32 for the construction vehicles, and then noise levels of operation and during construction. I'm not going to give the presentation summarizing this particular project. I will turn it over to representatives of We Energies. But just to note that the Plan Commission did review this at their January 14th meeting. They did recommend approval at that meeting, and we received no objections to date on record. So with that, I think I'm turning it over to Jennifer.
Good evening.
Put your mic
I don't want to talk too loud. My name is Jennifer Bogner. I'm the Director of Local Affairs for We Energies. With me is Rick O'Connor. He's a project manager in our power generation group. He's going to come up and give you guys a more detailed overview of what we're doing at the site. What I'm going to do is give you kind of an overview of why. So why are we doing what we're doing at the site? So to start, we have drivers for what we're calling our Generation Reshaping Program. So economic development. We all know about Microsoft. There are lots of other companies that are expanding, coming into this area, and we have to address that growth and just the generic growth from residences and other people coming to the area. Evolving regional and federal rules. So the EPA now has a rule. We have to get out of the coal business. We have to shut those units down by 2031 unless we can do carbon capture. We cannot do carbon capture in this area, so we have to shut them down. So we have 4 older units at the Oak Creek site. 2 of them have already been retired. The other 2 are going to be retired by the end of this year. The 2 units at Elm Road, those are the newer coal units, are going to be transitioned to natural gas. And then the other issue we have with sort of the evolving regional rules, the Midwest Independent System Operator is the regional grid operator for this part of the country. They have changed the way they look at demand. So in the past, we've always planned around what we call the summer peak, but now they've changed how they do it, and we have to plan for a peak in each of 4 seasons, which kind of changes the way we plan and do things. And then we have our energy transition. So we have a goal to be net zero by 2050. So in order to get there, we have to obviously make some changes in the way that we do things. So the slide you see here talks about our investment in renewables, our goals for those renewables. So for the next 5 years, this is our 5-year plan, we're going to invest in 2,900 megawatts of solar, 565 megawatts of battery storage, and then 900 megawatts of wind. So that's quadrupling our carbon-free generation. Then we're looking to modernize our gas-fueled generation fleet. So we've applied to the Public Service Commission for an 1,100 megawatt CT plant here in Oak Creek, which Rick will talk a little bit more about. We also are looking at 675 megawatts of additional CT generation. We also have filed with the PSC for what we're calling the Rochester Gas Lateral. That's the lateral that will come up and feed into the Oak Creek plant so we can feed gas into the property. That's coming roughly from Kenosha County moving northeast. It enters Oak Creek at our plant property line, so no residents in Oak Creek will be affected by the gas line coming through their property. Then the last thing is rice generation. It's a little bit different, gas generation. We filed for 128 megawatts at our Paris plant down in the town of Paris. And then we're looking at an additional 114 megawatts of that rice generation elsewhere in our service territory. So to support all this gas generation, one of the things we're looking at, and we have done a little bit of it, is LNG storage. So that's liquefied natural gas. It's supercooling natural gas, storing it in a tank, and when you need it, you heat it back up and put it out into the system. This helps, especially for gas supply when the weather is like it is outside right now, that we can take that back and put it back into the system. So we've proposed for Oak Creek a 2 billion cubic foot facility tank that Rick will tell you a little bit more about. We've also recently completed 2 other facilities, one in Ixonia and one that we call Bluff Creek that's actually in the town of LaGrange in Walworth County. Those are approved, finished, and up and running. We're also looking at an additional 4 billion cubic feet in other locations that we have not determined yet. So all of this investment, all of what we're doing, this chart I think is really helpful in kind of visualizing why we're doing what we're doing. So you can see the red is current nuclear, so that's a very steady, everyday runner. This, by the way, this chart shows just a snapshot of 7 days. So up above that, you see the dark blue, that's hydro. There's a very thin brown line right above that, that's biomass. The gray blue is wind, and you can see how that goes up and down each day. And then the bright yellow is solar. So you see obviously how that spikes during daytime hours. And then the green that you kind of see coming on the edges where the solar comes down, that's battery storage. And the orange is natural gas. So you can see the natural gas sort of fits in the ebbs and flows of the solar so that we have a good solid amount of supply for the system. So that's sort of the, in one chart, it shows you kind of why we're doing what we're doing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rick, and he's going to give you a rundown of what we're doing specifically.
Thank you, Jen. Good evening. I'm Rick O'Connor, project manager. And we'll start with the artist rendering. What you can see on the far end is Lake Michigan. You're looking east here on this photo. You can see the Elm Road generating station in the back. You'll see the L-shaped building is our existing administration building. And where we'll be installing the combustion turbines is essentially in an open field just east of that white building of the administration building. And that's 5 natural gas-fired combustion turbines. I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. To the south there is the LNG tank, and we'll talk a bit more on that, but that's all inside the existing rail loop. And you can also see a little bit to the north on the left side of the photo, there's a smaller blue tank. That's an existing LNG tank that's been there since 1965. We're essentially installing a larger version of what's been out there since 1965. This is a aerial photo. Gives you another look at it. Lake Michigan off to the right of the drawing to the east. The top red rectangle there is where the combustion turbine facility will fit. That's an open field right now. And just to the south there is where we'll install the LNG tank. LNG, again, is liquefied natural gas. A little bit of detail on the combustion turbine project. We will be installing 5 GE, which is General Electric, combustion turbine generators. GE is really the primary supplier of the combustion turbines. We're putting in what's called a GE7F. There's about 1,000 GE7Fs in operation today in the U.S., around the world. It's kind of the workhorse that GE produces for producing electricity. Real simply, a combustion turbine is you have a combustor with natural gas and air. That spins a turbine. The turbine spins the generator, and that generator makes the electricity. It will have 5 units, and it'll produce approximately 1,100 megawatts of total capacity. This plant is not expected to operate all the time. It'll be different than the existing coal units. We'll be shutting down about 1,100 megawatts of coal units, and what we'll be installing here is similar capacity, 1,100 megawatts, but it will be limited to a capacity factor between 10 and 20%. So it will not be in operation all the time. As Jen indicated, it's really filling in the gaps when the renewables are not available. We will also install a natural gas line to the site. That'll come across Racine County and a compressor station to get it up to the pressure that's required for the gas turbines. There will be a large interconnection to the ATC substations. That'd be the overhead power lines, essentially. ATC is the American Transmission Company. They operate and install the electric grid, the large overhead transmission lines that you see around the state. What we're doing is essentially unplugging the South Oak Creek coal units, and we'll out of the substations, and we'll plug back in the new gas turbines into those same substations to get our connection out to the electric grid. Total cost of this project, $1.2 billion. If approved, construction is expected to begin. At this point, we're expecting about August of this year, and the units would be online, starting with the first of the 5 units by the end of 2027, and the last of the 5 units by the summer of 2028. This gives you just an overview of the equipment layout. Just real quickly, the pink area down to the bottom left is the gas compressor yard. The gas will come into the site. We'll increase the pressure before it goes into the combustion turbines. And then there's really 2 power blocks. And again, the 138 kV power block, that's just what we're going to plug into the ATC 138 kV substation. The 345 kV power block, that's 3 units are going to plug into the ATC 345 kV substation. And to the top in the green, you have the air-cooled heat exchanger, very similar to the radiators that you have on your automobile. It's really a closed-loop radiator system to provide cooling on the engines. I'll step through this one quickly. This just was providing some of the lighting information required by the Planning Commission, but if you have any questions, I can certainly come back to that. This is an elevation view of the combustion turbine plant. Starting on the left side, that is the air inlet, the air intake. This is showing one of the 5 combustion turbine units. The air comes in, it's combined with the natural gas in a combustor. At the center there is the combustion turbine and the electric generator, and then the exhaust gas is sent out to the right of this drawing up the stack. The stack here, there'll be 5 stacks, 1 for each unit. Each stack is 90 feet high. A little bit of background on the liquefied natural gas project. Again, LNG is the abbreviation for liquefied natural gas. As indicated before, we have had a tank out at Oak Creek since 1965. What we're putting in, and that's about 1/4 of a BCF. What we're putting in is quite a bit larger, 2 BCF LNG storage tank. And it includes liquefaction equipment. And what the liquefaction does is it's really converting the natural gas in the vapor form that you burn in your house and your furnace. We're going to convert that into a liquid for storage. And the benefit that is that you can store about 600 times the volume of liquid in the tank when it's in a liquid form. And the liquefaction is really, the equipment there is a refrigeration system. We're cooling it down to minus 260 degrees, very cold, but that's the temperature at which natural gas is converted into a liquid. We'll fill that tank up through the summer on the cold winter days, any other days that we need additional natural gas. We'll take it out through the vaporization equipment, and in short, that's kind of a warm water bath. We warm it back up, that liquid turns right back into natural gas. We put it right back into the pipeline and send that back out to our customers for heating their furnaces on a cold winter day like today, or for running the electric generating facilities. When we were here for the Plan Commission, I think that was January 14th, we were running the new liquefied natural gas facilities that we just put into operation out at Higsonia and out in town of LaGrange. They've got them on ready tonight, so I don't know what it is. We seem to show up here on cold winter nights, but it's starting to prove the point that these facilities are necessary to keep the furnaces running on a day like today. Total cost for the LNG project is $456 million. If approved, the construction, we'd expect that to begin this summer with an in-service by the end of 2027. Just a real quick schematic. The green is the vapor form of natural gas. The blue is the liquid form. We take that gas off that pipeline, we pull it in, we clean it up, take out any water, take out any CO2, cool it down to minus 260 degrees, put it into the LNG storage tank, and then when we need it, it just comes back out. You warm it back up, turns right back into natural gas, and we put it right back into the same pipeline. So kind of the purpose of showing you this schematic is we're just taking it out of the pipeline, storing it in the tank, and then we put it right back into that same pipeline. This is a overview of the LNG facility arrangement. It's kind of an administrative area, the light blue on the left. The green equipment in the center is the liquefaction equipment. The light purple is the LNG storage tank, and the darker purple is the vaporization equipment to put it back out to the pipeline. This again is a little bit of the lighting. We won't go through this. This is a bit of an elevation view. I think what you're interested in is probably the tank. The tank itself is 170 feet high at the highest point of the steel. The existing tank out there for reference is 135 feet high. The big difference is this is a much larger diameter tank. This is a 206-foot diameter tank. It's a steel tank. It's called a full containment tank. It's got 3 foot of concrete containment around the outside, and on the inside it's got another tank made out of 9% nickel, which is really the material needed to contain the liquid at the minus 260 degrees. Quite a few of these facilities in operation today. There's about 100 of them installed by utilities in operation throughout the country. Project schedule. This summer, we expect to get our approvals from the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin and from the Wisconsin DNR. There will be a public meeting with the Public Service Commission on March 25th in the Oak Creek Community Center. We'll start construction shortly after approval, probably August, September timeframe is the current expectation. We'd expect the first combustion turbine to be delivered from General Electric next May. Those will come in by rail. We'll unload them within the site. The last combustion turbine will be delivered by January of 2027. And by the end of 2027, we'll have that first combustion turbine operating. We'll have the LNG tank constructed. We'll start filling that tank. And by the summer of 28, we're expecting to have all the combustion turbines and the facilities in operation. So a lot of work to be done. Let me just step all the way through to some of the photo simulations. This is just from the main gate, looking at the facilities. Kind of difficult to see here. You can see the Elm Road stack in the back. Have Christy me kind of point out the tank behind that speed limit sign. I apologize that that sign made its way into the drawing, but it'll be visible, but barely just the top of the tank you'll see from the main gate on Highway 32. This is a view from Haas Park. You'll be able to see the combustion turbines. You can see the top of the 5 stacks, and you can also see the tank off to the right there. And if you go a little further east past Haas Park, kind of to the east end of Elm Road there, you can again see the 5 stacks, and you can see off to the left there, you can see the existing LNG tank, and off to the right, I think you can barely see the LNG tank there, the proposed one.
Sorry. Emissions from those 5 stacks will be what?
Emissions from that, we need to meet the EPA requirements for the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. So there will be levels of nitrogen oxides, particulate matter. All of those emissions will be well below the existing National Ambient Air Quality Standards. So it's relatively clean, significantly cleaner than what we've been operating out there. That's all I have for this evening. Any questions?
Before we go to questions, I am going to continue with the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, please.
Hang on, we're in a public hearing. So I'm going to make 3 calls on the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium, name and address. Second call on the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium, your name and address. Third and final call. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium, name and address. Okay, we will now close the public hearing. We will move on to consideration of that resolution, allowing that conditional use permit, and we'll open it up to the council. Ken, obviously you had a question.
Yeah, and for either one of you, they can answer this. Post or maybe, I'm not sure what your plan is. It's going to be concurrent, or if it's going to be after the construction of these 5 natural gas fired plants. The conversion of the existing Elm Road 1 and 2, what's the timeline on that?
Yeah, the conversion is really by the year 2030. We will essentially be out of coal for the Elm Road units. We'll still have the ability to operate on coal until the year 2032, but by the year 2032, we'll be completely out of coal. No more coal will be operated there.
But those 2 units will be converted to natural gas units?
Correct, yes.
And their cooling system will be what at that point?
The cooling system will remain the same, so that's still the once-through cooling out of Lake
It'll
Michigan.
be water cooled?
Water cooled, yes. Yep.
Okay, Ken?
Yep.
Steve?
One of the earlier slides had a comment that said rice generation. What is rice
Well, that's a
generation?
good question, and we get that one quite a bit. RICE is an acronym. It's reciprocating internal combustion engine. So it's really just an engine with big pistons. These are, about 24-inch pistons, big reciprocating engines.
Okay. If you could give me a layman's explanation of how big how can I say this? How much energy in a megawatt, what it does for the community. I mean, you're talking so many megawatts of production. I'm just concerned, or not concerned, but curious as to when the power plant was at full production with all the power plants going, it produced so many megawatts, okay? And then couple of units came offline, so I imagine that capacity went down a little bit. And now you're converting from coal to natural gas. Is it going to be even lower because we've been blessed by not having rolling blackouts and other issues that other states have had, and with, as you mentioned, Microsoft and other companies coming in, is there still going to have the capacity to keep everybody happy and not be turning off air conditioners in the summer because we aren't producing enough energy because we've converted to natural gas versus the bountiful coal production that we've had there for years?
Well, that's an excellent question. Yeah, reliability is certainly a critical component of this project. The Oak Creek plant, the 4 units to the south, that'll all be shut down. That's a total of about 1,100 megawatts. What we're installing, the new natural gas, is also about 1,100 megawatts. So we're really, from a megawatt perspective, it's really comparable, really essentially the same capacity. We don't expect to operate the natural gas units as much. The plan is to operate we're going to put in quite a bit of solar, quite a bit of wind, and when the wind is blowing and the sun's shining, that's what we're going to run. It's essentially free energy. But if they're not running, if it's not available, from a reliability standpoint, we have to have something available. So that's where the natural gas plant comes in, and that will meet the needs. And the beauty of the combustion turbines is these are quick starts. So these things can start up in 10 minutes or less. Coal plant will take you 12 hours, 24 hours if you shut those things down to get them back.
It sounds like you're going to be relying on wind and solar and battery and kicking in the combustion turbines when you need it. Is that what I hear?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. Yes.
Okay. In the artist rendering, you didn't point out where the solar panels were going to go on the property, or the wind, the hideous looking wind turbines. I mean, if we're talking about ruining a view of the lake, just put up a couple hundred of those. So where are those going to go on the property? And quite frankly, how good is battery power going to be? I mean, electric cars don't go very far. How many houses you're going to power by batteries out there?
Yeah, again, those are all excellent questions that we wrestle with every day. And I should probably clarify: the wind and the solar is not going here. It's not going at the Oak Creek site. Those are going to be built at separate facilities. We recently we've installed solar projects up in Manitowoc County, our Two Creek Solar Project. We just put in 300 megawatts out in Iowa County, a large solar project. And just the end of last year, we put in a 200 megawatt project in Kenosha County, in the town of Paris. And we have quite a few additional solar parks that are currently under development that'll be built really over the next 4 or 5 years. Wind, we have quite a bit of wind up in Fond du Lac County, a lot of wind in Columbia County, and have plans for additional wind generation. But yeah, sorry for any confusion. No wind, no solar going to be installed at this location.
And my last question is probably the most touchy one here. You say about $1.2 billion to do this. Unless I missed it, and I may have, who's paying for this? The people that use We Energies, or are you guys footing the bill?
Yeah, this is paid for by the electric and natural gas customers, and these are essentially the least cost options over the life cycle.
Potential rate increase, then maybe.
Potentially.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll just come down the line. Greg, anything?
No
Nothing?
questions.
Okay, Lisa.
No questions?
Come back to Ken again. Anything?
I'm good, Dan.
Okay, Chris.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. I think that was a very good explanation by we. Good questions. I have none. Kind of familiar with it. I've been over this a few times at planning and other places. It's a good step in the right direction. Again, it's putting it together, and I think Steve said it best. This does provide not only a cleaner footprint, but reliable power here in the state of Wisconsin for all residents. When wind and solar ain't there, of course, you can only store so much in battery. They just store in battery. They don't create energy through battery. But gas is it. So there's no further discussion. Motion on 9 for that resolution. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Melissa?
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor. We were, as staff, asking that the council consider holding the resolution for the reason, I think, many of the reasons that we've heard tonight in some of the presentation in terms of the consistency and accuracy of what we would include in our amended conditional use permit for your consideration relative to the PSC and DNR approvals regarding those applications under consideration. So we just are trying to ensure that we are all encompassing in terms of those conditions and restrictions, and we would ask for your consideration, if you see fit, for a motion to hold to the next common council meeting.
Thank you for that reminder. Appreciate that. So, is there a motion?
What's that date?
Marshall moved
March 4th.
March 4th.
Marshall moved to hold resolution number 12554-021725.
Bill, a second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Okay. We will see you in March. Thank you very much. Item 10 is a zoning text amendment. It's consideration to review an ordinance table 17.0304C pertaining to various uses, restrictions, and amendments to section 17.0804E pertaining to conditional use procedures. And to amend table 17.0603 of the municipal code pertaining to sign types. Catherine, just read that, please.
Public hearing number 4 is to review an ordinance to amend table 17.0304 sub C pertaining to various use restrictions to amend section 17.0804 sub E pertaining to conditional use permit procedures and to amend table 17.0603 of the municipal code pertaining to permitted sign types. Date of notice, January 22nd, 2025.
Wonderful. Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Christy Lane, Community Development Director. Local government bodies make policies, policy lists of permitted uses, conditional uses in their community. It sets the structure of economic development growth, and also those uses are usually based on a desire to include particular uses in the municipality. Some may not be so desirable in the community, but again, it's a policy decision that the elected officials get to make in terms of zoning code, permitted and conditional uses. So the city's strategic action plan calls for a priority of appropriateness of land use. Staff analyzed the city's table of permitted and conditional uses and saw a need to further regulate some particular uses. So I'm gonna, in your packet is a pretty big table. I'm gonna kind of break it down into certain categories. So this is the proposed part of the proposed table for permitted and conditional uses, and I'm only listed the amendments. Didn't list pages and pages of the table as it exists today. So focusing just on the amendment here. So the first category listed is adult entertainment. That's in the zoning code today, but it's listed today as a permitted use in the M1 manufacturing district. That does not allow the Common Council to scrutinize over hours of operation, parking, noise regulations, that sort of thing that a conditional use permit allows the local governmental body to analyze. So the proposed change is to simply change it from a P, permitted use, to a C, conditional use for that particular category. The next ones listed, highlighted in the pink there, are beer, wine, and liquor stores, tobacco, electronic cigarette, other smoking supply retailers, pawnbrokers, and short-term, small dollar, like payday loan type of financial institutions. These items, beer, wine, liquor, tobacco, pawnbrokers, short-term, they are not even listed in the zoning code today. if someone calls either Todd or I and says, "Can I open a pawnbroker store? What zoning district is that allowed in?" Our answer is, "Oh, it's just general retail is the category it falls under because it's not even called out in our zoning code today." And they would go under a permitted use with absolutely no ability for the Plan Commission or Common Council to review that particular use. So what is proposed before use is to add these categories to the zoning district, to the zoning code. Beer, wine, liquor stores, the Plan Commission, we kind of scrutinized over this and discussed and debated. Actually, this item was before the Plan Commission in December, and the Plan Commission asked me to go back and make some modifications, and one of those modifications was regarding the beer, wine, liquor store category. At first, it was drafted that just not allow these new users to come into the city, but instead we drafted it breaking it down by square footage. So the way it's drafted is that a smaller beer, wine, liquor store, less than 5,000 square feet, a new applicant would not be able to come into the city of Oak Creek the way it's drafted. But existing small scale users can always change hands till the end of time. So existing uses that are smaller than 5,000 square feet are basically grandfathered. But bigger beer, wine, liquor stores greater than 5,000 square feet would require a conditional use permit in the B3, B4, and B6 districts as it's drafted. It's drafted that tobacco stores, cigarette smoking supply retailers, vape stores fall under that category. New ones would not be allowed in the city of Oak Creek the way it's drafted. So blank means not allowed. Pawnbrokers, again, that category is not called out today. So that category is specifically called out with the blank, meaning new users would not be allowed to come into the city. And then same for payday loan institutions. And then we started talking about vehicle-related uses. So today, vehicle sales and rentals are a conditional use permit in the B4, B6, LM1, and M1. That will remain that like a new dealership, let's just say like a new Toyota wants to come in. They could go in under a conditional use in the B4, B6, LM1, and M1 districts. But what we did is we specifically called out used car dealerships, sales and rental would not be able to come into the city of Oak Creek. And again, existing ones are grandfathered. They can change hands to the end of time. If there is a 1-year gap where these uses aren't in operation, they cannot reopen because they would then have to fall into the zoning code as it's written. And then we debated with the Plan Commission. We had a really nice, good discussion about car washes. So my first draft just said car washes, no, not allowed. And the Plan Commission asked us to go back and redraw the car wash topic to be a standalone. So the way it's drafted is a standalone car wash. New car wash would not be able to come into the city. But if it's a car wash as an ancillary use, like to a fueling plaza or a service station, those two categories would require a conditional use permit, and that car wash would be able to come in as an ancillary use. It's just the standalone car wash. The drafted policy would be that the city doesn't want to see more standalone car washes. And then we went into the industrial use category. Motor freight terminals today require a conditional use permit in the M1 district. It's drafted proposing to prohibit future motor freight terminals. So, for example, that old Yellow Freight parcel on Rawson and Howell, a new one wouldn't be able to come in. And then outdoor storage of logistics-related vehicles, that's a new category that is created in this draft version. It's not regulated today because it's not specifically called out, but it's drafted that it would prohibit future outdoor storage of logistics-related vehicles. In other words, a parking lot of semi-trucks. Again, higher and better use of what land is left in the city is the intent here with that particular item called out. So that summarizes the permitted and conditional use table. There's a second section of this draft ordinance, and that is zoning code requires a two-step plan commission process when it comes to the conditional use permits. It really calls out that there's plan commission meeting number 1, which is an introduction of the conditional use permit, and then a second plan commission meeting to talk about conditions and restrictions. As I've had the opportunity to go through this process almost a year now, conditions and restrictions are pretty boilerplate, and what changes depending on the users, usually like hours of operation or like a parking shortage, something pretty straightforward. And the zoning code says you must consider this in 2 different meetings. We've kind of practiced this. It can be hatched out in one plan commission meeting. We can talk about the boilerplate conditions and restrictions. So in an effort to be a little more efficient and business friendly, I'd like to get the applicants through the process a little bit quicker, and the plan commission was very satisfied with this recommendation. The zoning code amendment just consolidates these 2 steps into one plan commission meeting. And then the last section in the ordinance is, the city redid the zoning code in 2022 as a massive project, and we're finding little pieces here and there that, can always be improved. But one item that is kind of a little bit of a thorn in the neighborhood preservation officer's side is the ability to prohibit feather signs. You can tell with the language, it was the intent to prohibit them, but it doesn't actually say that in the code. So with this table before you, and again, leaving those items blank in all of the zoning districts, it's calling out truly that feather signs are prohibited. So again, just a little bit cleanup from 2022. So that summarizes the 3 sections of the draft ordinance. Plan Commission again reviewed it in December and January, recommended approval with the final version, and we've received no objections to date.
Great, thank you, Christy. As this is a public hearing, I'll make 3 calls. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach the podium. Second call on a zoning text amendment. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium. Third and final call. We'll now close the public hearing and go on to consideration of that ordinance, amending the zone and sign ordinance. So open it up, council. Questions, comments?
I just, from planning commission friends, can you explain just the thought behind the car washes? I don't know if I understand.
So we had some pretty long discussions on it, and our last car wash was Tsunami.
Yeah.
And it was allowed anywhere in that. Correct me if I'm wrong. The B4 business. So somebody could put them all along Howell Avenue, and we really don't have the ability, more or less, to say no. So they realistically could put 6 of them in a row along a B4 district, like Howell Avenue, 27th Street. We don't have a lot of leverage to really stop that. But yet we didn't want to restrict the business, and just use Quick Trip as an example. Model attaches a car wash to it, be allowed to do that. We just didn't want to become a city gobbled up by these standalone car washes. That was the premise of it. And if I'm wrong, Christy, you can say it better. And it was a pretty long discussion. Andrew?
Could I just add some context, hopefully? And I just really applaud Christy for bringing this forward, her experiences in other communities who are definitely at a different chapter in their evolution where they're thinking, wow, geez, if we could have done this a long time ago, maybe the character of our community would look a little different. I think I would like to see this, I guess we're adding to the list and then being able to subtract the ability to do these things. So addition by subtraction by addition. Hopefully we can grow this list because we don't have a lot of real estate. We do not have years of growing to do in this community. And if you dovetail the things we're doing with the SAP and acquiring strategic properties, making for the highest and best uses, this legislation is really important to preserve the opportunity to have meaningful development and patterns that at least this elected group sees fit for the community long-term is really a good step. It's a good tool. We sit here and scratch our heads and we get questioned in the community, well, why did they let that there? A lot of the reasons are we couldn't do otherwise. We have this table to work from, and then we have the ability to review conditional use permit requests, but there's a higher litmus test for how you can go about denying a conditional use request if you don't want one. I think just a perfect example of this is Yellow Freight, and I think it's Pitt, Ohio, acquired Yellow Freight. I'm sure Pitt, Ohio is a great a great partner, a great business. They're doing some improvements to the property, but with this legislation, if that had been in place, there would have been 50 acres in the community on a major thoroughfare that would have afforded the community additional development opportunities moving forward. And instead we have a freight terminal valued at $7 or $9 million on 50 acres with a small handful of employees. So these are the types of things that through your legislative authority and your legislative tools that we're just hoping to pin down a little bit, because we don't want these requests coming into the door and not having anything to offer the decision makers here on. I know we don't really like that, but here we are. So, I just applaud Christy for bringing this forward. The other thing is, as other communities begin to regulate or prohibit these things, they go where they can be. So a great example, the vape shops, the liquor stores, as those are getting zoned out of other communities, they're setting up shop where they can. And certainly we do not want to proliferate those or these types of uses. So I think if you just look at our strategic plan, this is one way where you can govern a little more of how the character of this community looks and feels as we grow out the remaining pieces of property.
Other questions? Ben?
I had one on the planning commission, the review of conditions and restrictions. How is the intention, and you guys maybe from planning can answer, how you intend to resolve a situation where you actually cannot fix that in one session? So if there's some controversy over a restriction or condition on some kind of business that can't be settled in that meeting,
Sure.
How do you actually?
Yeah, the planning commission could hold the item and not provide a recommendation. They could provide a recommendation, and hopefully time between that and a public hearing, common council review, we could hatch it out. But I think that's
The staff could potentially provide a solution in common council and its public hearing then could.
Yeah, that would be the best solution, rather than us telling them up front, you have to go through this in 2 meetings. We hopefully could, I'm very confident we can hatch these out.
If that were to happen though,
Yeah.
Ken, it'd be no different than if we had the two. Right
Correct.
now,
Yep.
I don't know how you guys typically do that.
well, typically we have, as listed here on our screens, we have 2 meetings, whereas we would have 2 agenda items within that planning meeting. Well, if it didn't get through the second time, it would just come back.
Yes.
The same thing would have happened with 2 separate meetings, but instead of pushing the folks back a month or whatever the timeline is, even if we have the problem, we're still cutting time off because we're combining them meetings. So they're picking up 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Is that a public notice between those meetings or just a regular next meeting? Typically.
It would, I don't know, I guess we would do a public notice that it's back on the agenda. But really, those conditions and restrictions are so boilerplate. I would say
You said
98%.
I know there's some oddball things that we haven't been able to settle in one session. Just at the common
There
council
have
level,
been, and usually at planning, they come up with a workable solution. We don't like to do wordsmithing. We like to.
We don't like to do that here.
No,
so.
not at all. And the same holds true at planning. So we like to take it back to staff. And if it's really that tough that we can't figure it out, it would go back just like a normal thing. What we're really trying to do here is eliminate one.
Yeah, I understand, but
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what the oddball.
Because the
stuff, so.
questions
Sure.
kind of bleed into it. We do the CUP introductions, and then everybody goes, okay, so what hours are you gonna do? Why are you doing this? And it runs right into it. They answer the questions when we bring them back 2 weeks later.
And they're providing us that information from day one with our application anyways. And we as staff have even not moved a project forward and put it on an agenda if we feel that it's not that we're not at an agreement for something, or it's just not ready. We don't bring items before the planning commission if it's not at that point.
Hopefully it'll expedite things.
I think
You
it
know,
will.
I hate, like the seller came through here, Bill
Yeah.
and Shirley were expanding their business. It seems like they were in here like 8 times for a parking lot addition. In a CUP, they acquired some land and it just went on forever.
Yeah, something so straightforward, a certified survey map, site, conditional use permit, and then conditions and restrictions. 3 things that that we could have covered in one plan commission meeting, went to 3 plan commission meetings, and then common council on top of that. Trying to expedite the process and a little more business friendly.
I'm all for
Yeah.
that, I'm just wondering what.
Yeah, you're right, there will be once in a while.
Anyone else? Okay, if there are no further questions, that's 11. Motion on 11.
Bill move to approve ordinance 3120, amending various sections of chapter 17 zoning and sign ordinance related to table 17.0304 sub C's permitted and conditional use table section 17.0804 sub E conditional use permit procedures and table 17.0603 permitted sign types.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye. New business, IT. Consideration of a motion to approve the purchase of networking equipment from CDWG in the amount of $174,238.55. And we have Tom with us tonight. How fortunate you're working, too.
Great. Well, good evening. Tom Kramer, IT Director. This request is to replace 40 network switches in the city that are going end of life from the current manufacturer. These are the access layer switches for the city, which is what everything physically plugs into. These are computers, phones, cameras, pretty much everything. The new switches will be easier for us to maintain. It also allows for higher power output, speed, and security than our current equipment. Due to the cost is why I'm here instead of Bob Waka. And this amount was approved for this year as a capital purchase. Happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Questions for Tom? Anybody?
Oh, that good amount came in. Budget.
If there's no discussion, questions, motion, please.
Marshall move to approve the purchase of networking equipment from CDWG in the amount of $174,238.55.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye. And item 13 is engineering, and its consideration of a resolution accepting the 2024 annual report for the Oak Creek's WPDES Stormwater NR 216 permit. Matt, want to make sense of all that?
Thank you, Mayor and Common Council. Matt Sullivan, Assistant City Administrator and City Engineer. Yes, before you is that 2024 annual report for Oak Creek Stormwater, or NR 216. The acronym actually stands for, and I had to look this up today just so I completely understood it. It's Wisconsin Pollutant Discharge Elimination System.
So I actually knew that. I
Did
don't
you?
know how, but I never forgot that since I've heard it.
So typically, this is one of our standard procedures that we have to go through in order to comply with our NR 216 permit that we have with the DNR. But what I wanted to do is kind of go through a little PowerPoint presentation our staff put together to highlight their efforts. We have a few new staff on board, and this was their first time putting this together as far as our new permitting. The format has changed, so it's kind of out with the old and in with the new. New formatting, new look, and just want to highlight their efforts and the work that they've done. So here we go. So our NR 216 requirements, obviously we're required to do this annually and submit it to DNR. We submit all of our data electronically now. This has been going on for a few years. Formatting has changed, but it is a new requirement from them, and it must be approved by our Common Council. So our stormwater team has kind of blown up. It used to be Phil Biermeister, and Ashley Kipchinsky took over when Phil retired. We've actually expanded the team a little bit to comply and actually dig in and get a little better with our data collecting. I myself just oversee it, provide them the tools and anything necessary. So I'm just kind of there. Ashley, Richard, and Josie are really kind of the workhorses behind it and do all of the work. So in 2024, some of the things that have changed and things that we've expanded upon are illicit discharge, pond inspections, erosion control, and our SWPPPs. We've done everything through our GIS database, and that's been a lot of help through the IT department. Kit Smart has been an exceptional tool for us and how we've expanded things, but here's kind of just a real quick look at some of our erosion control and our inspections that we do. It's a dashboard that we use internally. Gives us an idea of how many inspections we're doing. It's easy for me to look at and see how long our staff is taking. So it's a great tool in understanding on where our staff time is going, what we can expect in the future. And it also allows us to know where a lot of our sites are actually failing. Kind of keep track on the bottom, so your inlet protection, your silt fence, and things like that, where they're failing and where we're writing them up on our erosion control inspections. This is an interesting one, our outfall and our illicit discharge database. Before, we used to just go out and look at them and look for visual places that were basically failing. So what we learned through some of our audits with the DNR is that we're actually supposed to be doing some testing chemically. Josie has kind of taken this head on, our environmental specialist, and has really kind of taken this over and put it under her own wings to find out. So yes, we did spend some money to get the proper chemicals and training for her. She's satisfied for everything there, but she actually goes out and tests now. Make sure that we're meeting all the requirements and kind of identifying those areas. They were actually able to identify one that was failing. We're still working with the person right now to treat that and fix that, but we've been able to identify a number of them through this kind of programming that she's put through. It also allows us to have, once again, a running database for us to see how long it takes them to do their inspections.
Yeah, give me a notion of what actually failing.
Chlorine is a big one. So any kind of drainage that they might be dispersing to our stormwater, basically our creeks, if there's chlorine, high concentration of chlorine, oil, different types of components like that.
Okay.
They're very specific though, and I know she has very specific test pH, different levels like that. So there's a number of things that she has to check off her box. Richard and Josie are the ones that primarily manage that. Stormwater pond inspections, this kind of goes back to our discussions that we had internally and with council through our stormwater inspections and our practices through our stormwater and our increase in our fee to help us start expanding our inspections and things along our own ponds that we owned and also through the private. Once again, we were able to go through all of our 22 ponds. We did that several times this year. And this, once again, 44 minutes for one person to go through a pond. A lot of the issues that we're finding are overgrowth and things that are a challenge for these staff members to go in. So once again, it expands on our requests as we've moved forward through our programs, and hopefully this next year, Richard's already starting to dig into that, figure that out. We're working with our DNR contacts and finding out what certifications and things that we need to do. But this will help us as we move forward, and it'll also create that typical way of doing things for the private entities that we're going to start managing in the next year. That's part of our goals in our 2025 and our 216.
Matt, with the stormwater pond inspection, you said we got 22, we
Yes.
do. And maybe I missed it because you said you were gonna start to do it. When it comes to private companies or they own the pond, who inspects those? Because we've had complaints where ponds have gone unattended for years.
So we have a stormwater maintenance agreement. They are required under those agreements to provide us their own inspections annually. That has been one of our points of interest here moving forward in 2025, is to start creating that database of contacts, whether they're HOAs or private businesses. Things have changed over time. HOAs have gone dispersed or disbanded. But we're going to kind of start with private ownership, like Meyer or other businesses like that, and start making those contacts and reaching out and creating that database and making them aware of what their requirements are again, and then we'll keep following up. So it'll be a process. But one thing we wanted to make sure is that we were doing ours correctly and managing ours, so we can point at how to do it, things that we've learned, lessons we've learned as we move forward. A lot of times when you get into this, we might, as a city, have to go in and do it and then charge them. So we want to make sure that we're doing it right, and that we have a good plan forward and good procedures. So this is just kind of that stepping stone, but we're making progress compared to where we have been in the past. In 2024, obviously, the 3 new staff members, myself, Josie, and Richard, all kind of joined the team and are helping out Ashley. Tremendous, frees her up some time and actually gets it into the staff that has the expertise and the knowledge on it. Like I said, the chemical analysis were conducted for our illicit discharges. Drainage concerns were finally brought online. Like many other things, street light outages, mowing, and other things, NPO, we all now have databases for those and things called a citizens reaction or action for request for action. We actually entered our own drainage concerns on there now. So citizens go on there, they can enter it in, we receive that, they can actually track it, see how it's going, see what steps we're in. That's kind of a new step. And we began to use more social media this year for our public education, which is one of the requirements. Once again, this is kind of our drainage concern. This is just a little snapshot of it, but you know, the request category, the type, it kind of fills everything in, much like other people, but this, once again, gives us another tool and gives also the citizens another tool. Instead of consistently calling and not getting a reaction, they finally have a spot to go to. We can point that to them, and it's easy for us to track and make sure that we're getting those things done instead of just getting lost in the shuffle of daily business. So in 2025, what we can expect is our stormwater management documents. Like I said before, we're looking on those procedures, stormwater ordinance updates. Josie's kind of working through some of those, so you'll be seeing that coming forward. Some of our updates that we're looking at, and the private pond management. Those are the main topics that we're, I wouldn't say up to par, we're working towards. In the past, we probably haven't been as diligent as we should. These are items that we're noting and moving forward with the DNR. We are actually, one of the compliments that I've had from the DNR at this point is they're starting to use this as an example on a lot of our technology uses. So once again, Oak Creek, we're creating those new bonds, those new partnerships with them, our new staff, but kind of wanted to highlight the great work that our staff is doing. It's part of our job, I guess, as managers to make sure that we highlight to you and to the public, but we've kind of moved ahead and we're looking pretty good for this next year in 2025, but I'd be happy to answer any questions on that report.
From Matt?
The dashboards that you showed earlier, I'm assuming those are internal dashboards, right?
Generally speaking, for our erosion controls and that, yes. The drainage concerns or drainage complaints, that is actually public CRAs. So a lot of that internal stuff, we like to keep track of what we were, I mean, in the past, it's just, okay, they'd go out for an erosion control. We didn't know how long it was taking. This actually allows us to keep track, and it notifies us when the next one's up to date or when it needs to be done. So there's a number of tools that we can use. We've expanded this into a construction inspection. So it's not just little things for the NR 216, but we're actually expanding this now into basically our daily usage.
Stuff, man. Thanks.
Very nice, Matt. Motion on 13 then.
Yeah, we'll move to approve resolution 12553-021725, accepting the 2024 annual report for Oak Creek's WPDES stormwater permit.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderwoman Marshall?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
Guzekowski?
Aye.
Kirkowski?
Aye.
Lorik?
Aye.
And item 14 is consideration of a resolution accepting the workmanship of Always Contractors, Inc., and authorizing the final contractor payment under project number 23003. Matt?
Thank you, Mayor and Common Council. Matt Sullivan, Assistant City Administrator and City Engineer. Before you is that resolution accepting the workmanship from Always Contractors for the Avonshine parking lot and entrance improvements. So they've completed the punch list items. Everything has been done. If accepted tonight, there is still a 1-year warranty. So next spring, if grass doesn't grow in or things like that, we still can have them come back and manage that. Always has been very receptive to a lot of things that we've been working through with them. Just kind of a quick breakdown, our green infrastructure grant that we had, about $950,000 of this cost is actually within that green infrastructure, my latest calculations. So once we approve this, once it is approved, and then we install our sign, basically kind of part of our requirements within our agreement with MMSD, we can actually then go for our reimbursement for that $950,000. So this is the first stepping stone, is accepting the workmanship. Then we put in our sign kind of promoting what we've done out there, and then we can go in for our reimbursement. Happy to answer any questions.
Seeing none. Motion.
Kirkowski will make a motion to adopt resolution number 12557-021725, accepting the workmanship of Always Contractors, Inc., and authorizing final contract payment under project number 23003.
Lorik seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale?
Aye.
Guzekowski?
Aye.
Kirkowski?
Aye.
Lorik?
Aye.
Marshall?
Aye.
Item 15 is consideration of a resolution approving a stormwater management practices maintenance agreement with 8930 South Shepherd LLC for Lucy Meadows subdivisions located at 9830 South Shepherd Avenue. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the resolution for the stormwater management practice maintenance agreement. These are very standard. This is actually for a 10-lot subdivision cul-de-sac off of Shepherd Avenue, just south of Ryan Road. Area is a little tight, a little difficult to work with. We've been working back and forth with the developer for several iterations. Ashley and our stormwater management have been pretty much on top of this, stormwater consultant, in regards to making sure that we meet our requirements within the city and our Chapter 13 ordinance. Everything has been met. We're very comfortable with where we're at. We'd like to move forward and get your blessing on the stormwater maintenance agreement. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Matt on the subdivision? Okay, seeing none. Motion.
Clerk moves to adopt resolution number 12558-021725, a resolution approving a stormwater management practices maintenance agreement with 9830 South Shepherd LLC for the Lucy Meadows subdivision located at 9830 South Shepherd Avenue.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski?
Aye.
Kirkowski?
Aye.
Lorik?
Aye.
Marshall?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
And item 16 is a motion to approve the Enhanced Surface Transportation Rehabilitation Program. Matt. Christie?
I think I'm going to be the one kicking off. Max has got the presentation.
Oh, Max
up.
has it?
Max has got the presentation up, but
Okay.
I'll be starting with our justification through this program. All right, thank you. So over the past year or so, we've been discussing some of the funding shortfalls, I guess, of our transportation, surface transportation, especially through our budget. One of the items that the council asked us to do was look at our CIP funding and come up with a policy for, I guess, improvement on the funding, how we would do that, things along those lines in regards to just surface transportation. So that would be our roads, sidewalks, and trails. So I'm going to kind of just go through a quick little presentation on my end for the justification part. It's more of just background information, I guess, if you will. So right now the city maintains about 145 center lane miles. That does not count our lane miles, which has up to about 350 approximately lane miles of roadway. Right now with existing funding of 1 million, we cover about 3 miles a year. So if you do the simple math, that's 48 years we touch a road maintenance-wise. Right now, the current standard, if you go just on years, it's about 18 for the first cycle, and then every 12 years for the next 3. That usually runs at about a 50-some lifespan for asphalt, and it's roughly 65 years for concrete. So as you can tell, one maintenance cycle is pretty much the life cycle of an asphalt road. So our funding is definitely short. We're doing very well with what we have. So some of the issues and safety things that run into low-funded roads, obviously, is our increased wear and tear, and that's basically from growth, traffic increasing, pedestrians increasing, several different businesses coming in, traffic just kind of gets pushed around. And our declining PASER ratings, this was one thing that we found interesting as we looked through this. Back in 2003 or 2004, when I first looked at it, we were a little over 7. Throughout the years, we decreased all the way down to 5.9 in 2020. A lot of that has got to do with, obviously, the amount of funding and our deterioration of roads. When you touch it every 48 years, roads will deteriorate much quicker. Some of our bigger goals here are just, we want to improve our quality, our travel experience for everybody, not only our local residents, but anybody that's in here doing business, traveling through, or visiting. Those are big items here. If I'm in a neighborhood and bad roads, it kind of looks bad for the city. It doesn't project very well. We also want to improve our mobility, whether that's for vehicular or pedestrians. So like I was saying on the historical PASER ratings, back in 2005, we were at a 7.3. Then we dipped down in 2020 to a 5.9, and we're kind of coming back. A lot of that has to do with our staff that we have and our approach, doing more of the maintenance options versus full balanced approach, which is preventative maintenance and then reconstruction and rehabilitation. We've gone to more just preventative for the last couple of years, try to push those roads out. So that's why you'll see that little bump. So I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what PASER ratings are. This is a rating system we use on our roads. We've gone through this before. It's a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. So PASER rating 8, you really aren't doing much, but if you kind of look at it, it'll start showing signs of some aging and wear and deterioration. You might see some cracks. They're very tight. You can barely even see them. Some of them are usually crack sealed already, but it's pretty much you're not doing much other than crack sealing on that. So when you get to the PASER rating 7, which we were in 2005, that's where you're starting to see signs of more deterioration and aging. Cracks are few, they're not as wide yet, and there are some very, very few patches, but everything's in real good condition. Mainly just want to continue with crack sealing. And then you'll start seeing the ratings kind of deteriorate pretty quick. So PASER rating 6 is kind of where we're sitting right now with our overall rating of our roads. You'll start seeing major longitudinal and traverse cracks. All the cracks are tight but sealed. Start seeing them starting to expand a little bit, a little more than 1/4 of an inch, but overall, if you seal them, you can maintain those pretty well. Where we were or where we're headed, obviously at the funding we're at, PASER rating 5, doesn't look great. You got a lot of raveling, block cracking, which is, you name that after what it looks like big blocks, but that's over 50% of your pavement. So as you can see it, we kind of look at every road about 50% has to meet what the failures and deterioration are for that to get that rating. So right now, I fear, and as I look through our programming and some of our tools we have, we're headed towards the 5s and 4s. So when we kind of looked at how to approach this and give you a better understanding of where we sit and how to look at the tools, we kind of wanted to give you an update on our industry standards. And like we just went over a little bit ago, typically for asphalt roads, they last 18 years before you really need to do your first initial maintenance. And that's usually a mill and overlay. Very standard, very simple. And then ideally, you'll try to do 3 rehabilitations before you do a full reconstruction. Right now, our current measures, they offer temporary improvements. That's mainly micro sealing. That's what we've been doing, is we've really been pushing that micro surfacing, which we've done on a few roads in some of your districts. Basically, that prolongs you about 8 years. Really, it's not a fix, it's a Band-Aid. Fills in the cracks, gives it a good look, prevents the sun from deteriorating the pavement much more. But that really only lasts 8 years. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at several scenarios to give you options and give you an understanding. So if you were to use our industry standard, which is basically just using age, not your actual condition ratings, and we put it through our program that we have, projected rating, road rating would be about an 8, but we're looking at about 4.4 million per year, and this is just for roadway. This does not include sidewalk, just roadway. So we're all kind of looking at the same thing. So what we went to is we went to a more of an efficiency-focused approach, which is basically ratings. We wanted to look, and we think that's the more appropriate way to do it. As far as engineers, we don't like just using a number. You can have it age 18, but it could be pays a rating of a 7. So why would I do what it tells me I should do? You want to look at the rating. You want to look at the condition base. That is really how it's reacting in the real world. So when we started looking at more of that efficiency focused, we ended up only spending 3.4 per year, with a rating of about a 7.3, which is very good. You're not going to find very many communities with an average rating of a 7.3 on the road system. Pretty awesome if you ask me. And then we went to more of the proposed budget, which was $3 million. I think that's what we were kind of eyeing up, I guess. That was just our initial thought, $3 million, but we also wanted to include our sidewalks. So we bumped that down to about a 2.8 for our roadways, and then $200,000 for our sidewalks and trails. That basically resulted in about a 6.8, 6.9 rating on average for our roadways, which once again is exceptional. It does give us a better position for the city moving forward. Our major takeaway that we saw when we were doing it, that a balanced approach is probably the proper way to do it. It balances our needs not only for our roadway health system of our health of our system, but it also helps us with the funding. We're not asking for the whole thing of 4.4 or 4.5 for the roads. This gives us a good approach. This is the best approach, not only financially, but also for the health of the system. So this is just kind of a quick snapshot of the spreadsheet that we use. You'll notice on the far left is where all of our inputs happen. But what that does, this is a 30-year outlook. This is where we get our numbers. So we can project this stuff approximately 30 years. Give us a really good idea. You'll notice that the big spikes and the peaks, that's not surprising to us, just because of the way the formulas are put into these spreadsheets. So this is just the summary of it. We know that there'll be peaks and valleys, but we can smooth those out as we continue to approach this. This is definitely a good tool for where we start. Now this is only for asphalt, so you'll see, I believe it's 1.9. 1.97 annually is what the average is, and this is just for asphalt. So the concrete alone was like another 900,000. Concrete tends to be a little more expensive, and then you'll see your average rating was 6.9. overall, I think I had a 6.87, so with the concrete, it adjusts out a little bit. So when you start talking sidewalk and trail maintenance, there's a lot more that goes into this than what we're just putting on the slides, but there's a lot of consideration in regards to just maintenance. There's another aspect of filling in gaps, expanding our trail systems, and making those connections to meet some of the SAP initiatives here, which are that filling in the gaps. But overall, we are responsible for about 112 miles of sidewalk. That's just sidewalk, that doesn't include trails. These are the adjacent ones to our roadways. We have been very inconsistent with our funding for our maintenance. Typically, it has gone anywhere from $0 for a number of years to $75,000 for a year or two. Other than that, we've been very reactive to complaints, DPW-wise. Over the last 2 years, we've worked with council to do some pilot projects. One of them is Safe Step. So we brought Safe Step on. What they are is they are a full functioning group. They go out and they do the inspections, provide pictures and assessment of all your sidewalk within a budget. So we started with $5,000 was our first one in 23 and said, hey, this is the subdivision we want you to do. So they go out, they provide pictures, and then they actually approach us and say, what do you want off? What don't you want to do? What do you want to do? And at that point, we decided that we wanted no replacements. We just wanted to do what they call saw cutting. So basically, it's almost just kind of, I don't know how you want to describe it, but it's more of just like you skim off the concrete that's creating the trip hazard. That first project we had, we spent $5,000 up in Cedar Hills area, about 0.64 miles is what we achieved. Took care of 54 trip hazards. We had identified about 0.05 miles needed replacement. We expanded that project through funding that we were provided by council in 2024. We were provided about 60,000. We wanted to stay within a budget around 50K, so that provided some additional funds for the reactive part that they had throughout the year. But we were able to do 4.3 miles of trip hazards. 445 of those were addressed. And we did identify 0.33 miles of replacement. So overall, this kind of process is very efficient for us. We have one person that goes out there and does the work, provide all the information to us. It really allows staff some flexibility, but it does free up our staff. In the sense that we're not actually going out there to identify these. We're provided GIS data points, pictures, and then kind of estimates on what we would call for replacement. But through this small pilot projects that we did, we ended up with about 145,000, roughly 142 cost in replacing, which we haven't done yet. We're looking to do that as one large project, though, bring in a contractor. That would be the most efficient, cost-efficient way of doing it. But the main point we're trying to take out of this is the inconsistent funding for our sidewalks has kind of left us in a scenario here where we need to look at trying to help fund that and be more proactive in addressing our trip hazards as our sidewalks continue to grow, and also as they continue to age. But this, I think, advances a lot of our issues and things, or not issues, but points that we wanted in our SIP to address. I think I do have some pictures. So on the far left, the sidewalk repairs that you can actually see, it was identified in the picture on the left, kind of where all the grass is growing, as a trip hazard. And we gave them the actual amount that we were looking for, less than that. And then you can actually see the finished product where they just kind of cut it. That's an acceptable slope. They do everything within that. The cool thing with the process here when they do this is it's all contained within their own equipment. So there's no dust. There's nothing left behind. They just come in there, they do it once, and then they move on to the next one. So it's very efficient, very minimal impact to residents or anybody else. But as far as the sidewalk remove and replacements, I know Lemon Krakowski was kind of requesting some of pictures of those, but this is a great example of why you can't saw cut and fix this. It just have to replace that. This is the picture they provided us, so we would actually be able to go out and identify this. Out the bid. So our work on that end too is very reduced, which is a pretty good trade-off for what we're paying. Next portion is up to Max here.
All right, thanks, Matt. Max Kagan, Deputy City Administrator and Finance Officer. So, the one thing just for the Common Council to understand and recognize is, the City of Oak Creek, we lack the levy capacity or just general revenues to fund a program of this nature. So, as you're aware, we have levy limits, so we can't just increase the levy to pay for this directly, and we don't have general revenue capacity. So, the way we would go about funding the recommended program is the issuance of general obligation debt, and then we can take a levy limit exception for debt service. It's really our only viable option as a Wisconsin municipality to fund these larger capital projects and programs. As you may recall, we did something very similar when we funded that public safety staffing plan in the 2024 budget. We were using general revenue to service the debt. We shifted that to the general fund to pay for the police officers and firefighters, paramedics, and then we increased the levy for debt service to backfill. So again, this is the same exception for debt service. And when we were looking at it, we worked with Baird, our municipal advisor, looking at 4 or 5 different scenarios on kind of how would we structure and amortize this debt, trying to figure out a way that we can layer this in 10 years was the key. Really don't want this to go out past 10 years, just given that then you're incurring more interest costs, and then our credit rating agency, Moody's, gives us credit for retiring debt 10 years or so. So generally speaking, we try to keep all of our general obligation debt to under 10 years unless it's a 50-year facility. Then we would go out longer. The one thing we looked at is we looked at level amortization, but in the first year, we wanted to actually have a higher debt service payment, and that's due to the proportional decrease in the city's tax increment levy due to the termination of TID number 7, which we plan to do in April of this year. So I guess the way we were trying to plan for it, and one of the reasons why you're seeing this now instead of waiting for next budget cycle is that the tax levy is going to be decreasing about $470,000, the city's portion, when TID 7 closes. And the thought is, can we start a program this year and backfill that $470,000? So in the first year, there really isn't a tax impact to the general taxpayer, and then we can kind of phase in. So we did speak with the Personnel and Finance Committee at their February 12th meeting, and one of the requests they had is if staff can look at another model with a higher program funding level. So we presented a $3 million option. After that conversation went back and talked to Baird and see if we can do a $4 million option. And essentially that $4 million option is $4 million per year. That really would cover the efficiency and local condition focused recommendation that Matt provided. That was about that $3.5 million to base his program on the local road conditions. That would give us the $50,000 for the stave step inspections and saw cutting, $150,000 to do all the replacements, as well as gives us a couple $100,000 each year if there's a larger project, or it'll give us some capacity to absorb unit price inflation over the next few years. So we did look at a $4 million per year option as well. What you'll see in the modeling that I'll show in a second is we're still recommending a $3 million program in the first year, even if we go up to $4 million. And that's strictly due to just engineering department's capacity to get plans out and do a project for another $1 million in the next month or so. So those are really the two options that you'll see. So I have a couple charts and graphs for you. The first is just looking at if we were to proceed with the recommended program, what is the tax levy implications? So you'll see, you know, right now we're at 0 in 2025. And again, the first year we're going to take into account that retirement of the tax levy from TID 7. And then you'll kind of see in the dark blue line, that was the option 1. That's the $3 million per year. And you can say it's a pretty level funded for 10 years. So it takes 10 years to get the program to full maturation. So if you think about it, it's like steps. You're taking a step, because once you get to year 11, you know, 1 year of debt service falls off and 1 year comes on, and that's where you'll see that this becomes a straight line now, and that, you know, if you're retiring in this instance $370,000 a year, and then you're adding $370,000. So that's where, from a tax impact perspective, it really is the ramp up of the program to full maturation on the debt service, the 10 years, and then the tax impact's pretty negligible after that. At full maturation, $3 million comes to about $3.7 million. So that's just the interest cost. Again, we're assuming a 4% interest rate. Things are more favorable, less, but certainly want to be conservative here. And the second option was looking at the $4 million program. Again, very similar trajectory, very similar straight line. And what you'll see is that full maturation is about $5 million. So that additional interest cost with having additional principal outstanding. This next chart is just kind of illustrating how the program levy would change. So this is essentially the marginal cost increase or decrease each year when the program gets going. So again, we're starting at that same 470,000, so we can try and get net zero with the TID 7 tax increment reduction when it terminates this year. And then you'll see the $3 million program. It dips in the first year because we're higher here, and then you can see years 3 through 10, it's about 370,000 a year. And then again, once we reach full maturation, really the difference year to year is pretty negligible. You know, certainly we'll have to look at some adjustments to account for inflation over time, but we're hoping that if the council is comfortable with a $4 million option, you can see, you know, those years 3 through 10 are about 500,000, and it turns out to be about zero once you're in year 11 again. And, you know, with that $4 million option, again, you know, we're giving ourselves a little bit more capacity to absorb inflationary increases too, whereas at $3 million, you know, that would be challenging, and we may have to come back at a later time and ask for additional funding to try and achieve that pacer rating near that 7 that Matt asked. So looking at option 1, I think the key here, I would say, is we're looking at this based off the median home value in the city of Oak Creek, which is $341,800. And what this table is showing, just, you know, how the tax impact lays out for that home, both each year is then as well as cumulative. So you can kind of see on this chart, the first year is $28, second year is about $15.50, and then it's about $22.50 for the next 8 years. So over that 10-year period, that median assessed home in the community would be paying $221.55 for this program. But again, as I've mentioned several times now, you know, we are going to anticipate that reduction in the levy when TID 7 terminates. So essentially, that would offset most of the first year. You can see pretty immaterial 13 cents in the first year, $15.50 in year 2, kind of running that on. So that really brings the cost down of the $3 million program to about $193 at the end of year 10. And then I don't have like 2036 on there because, as mentioned, as 1 year comes off, 1 comes on. So this is really the tax impact to get you to the full maturation point. So on average, if you're factoring in the levy reduction, $193, you know, average about $19.25 a year on average across the years. And, you know, depending on what interest rates come in at, it could be more or less, but, you know, again, 4% is pretty conservative. We're starting to see that at about 3.5 right now. Looking at option 2, again, we would do $3 million in the first year and then $4 million every year thereafter. What you'll see here is now the total cost after that time period is $296.62, so about $300. So if you were to average that out, it's about $30 a year instead of the $22 a year. And then we factor in the levy reduction, again, trying to get to basically net zero in the first year. That comes out to about $269. So if you were to take that average, it's about $26, $27 a year for 10 years. And just kind of want to educate the council on, what are the benefits, especially financially, for moving forward with such a program. One, there's definitely a need. We understand that. But in that need, certainly is either 3 million or 4 million. It's really kind of what the appetite, I think, is for the common council. But, one of the other challenges we talked about during the budget workshop this fall was, our annual CIP each year is $2 million. And $1 million of that was going to roads, and $1 million of that is now going to reoccurring capital projects, or capital equipment purchases, police vehicles, computers, things of that nature. So, we're really getting stretched on the annual capital improvement program, and by shifting this surface transportation program from that cash and moving it to borrowing, that frees up $1 million that can go into capital equipment purchases, facility maintenance, things that we know are going to be needed in the future. If we start this program this year, you'll recall our 2025 CIP, we did budget $1 million for roads from cash. So what we would recommend is we move forward with borrowing this year. We would just reallocate that $1 million as the common council sees fit. So it's an additional $1 million we can allocate for one of the plethora of things I know we need, lakefront fire stations, so on and so forth. And then lastly, as I mentioned, that property tax burden is eased over a 10-year period. So it's not as if you're getting it all hit at once. Absorbing that burden is spread out over a 10-year period, which again is one of the benefits of borrowing because it does layer in. With that, I'm happy to answer questions you may have on financial aspects, and really looking for common council's concurrence that we need to move forward with the recommended program, and then what is your tolerance whether we shoot or aspire for a $3 million program or look to a $4 million program per year.
I just add a couple points on that. So if you look at things that poll really well almost all the time with the public, it's we want ourselves and our families and our property to be safe, and we are willing to fund with our taxpayer dollars to make sure that we have quality roads to go to travel on, even in our subdivision, but also to get to a point from point A to point B in a safe and efficient manner that doesn't rattle your teeth. Those things poll really, really well. And if you look at what this council has done over the last couple of years, I would throw water in with public health and safety. I think a lot of folks think there's the magic water company, but that's us too. And we know we have things like engineering and the behind the house stuff that we have to keep up. The question that we're being asked in Oak Creek is, geez, as we're growing and all this new stuff is coming in, I hope we're maintaining the cops in the streets, the firefighter, paramedics with the new population. I hope somebody's looking out for the roads that we already had and making sure we're maintaining those as we're building new subdivisions and things like that. Well, that's us. That's our responsibility. So if you look at what we did with the public safety staffing plan in 2024, a momentous lift in resources there. This is really akin to that on the surface transportation side of things. It will really make a difference, and I think it's one of those things that this group will be really proud of, looking back at the accomplishments, because this is a bill, this is a policy, and it's a really critical one. As Max had kind of documented, we had this conversation at the budget workshop, and we're like, our $2 million of CIP for a community of 40,000 people, a capital improvement program that we really largely, with the exception of some road programs and things over the years, we have not had a general property tax levy for. Really unheard of in a community of our size. When we were talking about this, and maybe Max included this in the report, I don't quite remember. We are a very rare city in the state of Wisconsin who does not use a levy exemption, a debt service exemption rather, for our capital improvement program. When we first approached the Personnel and Finance Committee with this, you know, and I'm talking with Mayor Dan, they're like, you know, $22 doesn't sound so bad if we're really doing, you know, a lot more work in the things that folks really value. You know, maybe $22 isn't so bad. So that's the other option. But not to undersell that, certainly the need is there. It would be great to have an 8 PACER rating and have pristine roads in Oak Creek. That would be unique to us. But through the lens of, we know we have a fire station too, we know we have a lakefront, we know we have building issues to take care of around the city. We felt that tax impact that you see in Max's charts was appropriate, knowing all of those other things are also coming down the pike in the next several years. And you know, again, we'll have our stamp in this chapter of the community, your stamp on those major projects. So we thought this justified the need of the surface transportation program, but also kept in mind all of those other things that we have to fund with taxpayer dollars down the road, and almost in the immediate future, and some of those things as well. So just applaud the staff. Max and Matt did a lot of work on this. I know your team, Matt, back behind the scenes did a lot of work. Happy to put this forward and follow up on your direction from the October budget workshop.
Thanks, Andrew. Good presentation, Max. Matt? Questions, Steve?
For the benefit of my fellow council members who weren't at the Personnel and Finance Committee this past Wednesday, I made the comments that we did exceedingly well with the public safety plan with regards to getting the information out to the public, to let them understand not only what we were doing, but how much it was going to cost. And then conversations I had with residents, you know, you explain it to them and how much it's going to cost, and they're going, hey, that sounds like a great deal for the for what we're going to get out of it. And because over my 12 years, I think I've had more complaints about the roads and the sidewalks than I've had about lack of police officers, other than to enforce, you know, traffic issues. But you know, so my request was to, first off, I'm in favor of the $4 million plan, and secondly is if we can do as well getting this out to the public like we did the public safety plan, the residents are going to I think appreciate this. And I know I won't be around to reap the benefits of what you all are going to get out of this, because it's going to be you know, good for the council to do this. But I'm not going to mind driving around barrels and construction equipment when it comes to road repair, because I'm just going to, you know, finally believe that all of my complaining wasn't in vain, because this work is being done, and you know, I'm just one of 6. But so that's my request, is that we go for the $4 million plan, and we continue with that great public awareness plan in whatever form you guys want to do it, so that, you know, they understand what's going on. And when you guys get the phone calls, how come my road isn't being repaired, now you be able to say, give it time, we're going to get to it, we got the money, it's going to be there. And that's it.
Greg?
Just a follow-up question to make sure I fully understood the levy impact. So it'll be incremental increases over the next 10 years, at which point it's fully funded? So there's no more increases, okay. And then going back to the slide that showed the dollar amounts and then the average PACER rating. is there a buildup to hit that average PACER rating? I'm assuming that if this is approved next year, they don't automatically get to that PACER rating. Is it like a 3-year window, 5-year window to get to that rating?
Probably can expect longer than that.
Okay.
We're sitting at a 6. There's a lot of work to do. Most of our concrete roads, let's take those for examples, were built in the early 80s. They haven't been touched. So you put a time on that, that's 40 plus years, and they should have been probably touched 20 years ago. So we have a lot of catching up to do.
Sure.
And that takes time. But I think the bigger point is we can now program it properly. We not only are going to focus on collectors, but now we can get into our subdivisions and we can really start making that impact to the person that's paying taxes versus, you know, on our collector roads or our major roads that you see. But now we can actually get in and make those major impacts, like take a whole subdivision and just get it done versus, you know, a little bit here and a little bit there. Our impact's going to be greater on a number of residents. So, you know, I can't give you an exact number, and it'll fluctuate, obviously, depending on how things go. But, you know, this has a 30-year window is what we have, but we have to start somewhere.
And unless I'm oversimplifying it, it seems simple numbers that 4 million option, you would be able to get there quicker.
Yes.
With more money.
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Well,
Okay.
yeah. Yep. More
So-
money you can put at a problem,
Sure.
the easier it's, the quicker you can take care of it.
So I would concur with Alderman Kirkowski. I'd be in support of the 4 million option, understanding that staff is pushing for 3 this first round.
My question is more for Melissa on the motion. We have 2 options in here. How can we move to approve something when we don't know which one we're going to do?
I think Alderwoman Marshall, what you would consider is a motion to, if you were inclined, approve the Enhanced Surface Transportation Rehabilitation Program and proceeding with option fill in the blank, 1 or 2 in the amount of X.
And just to clarify too, so I mean, this is more just direction for staff. So you know, at the March 4th meeting, we're going to have the debt issuance with the parameters resolution. So that's going to be $3 million if the council. So you would actually be approving the debt issuance at the next meeting for this. And then we would know, if you pick option 2, we would just know that when we do next year's issuance, we'll be at $4 million.
Or the second part, I'm lost on the second. Like, I'm lost between the 3 million and the 4 million.
So we're asking for $3 million in the first year. His staff only has the capacity to do $3 million worth of projects. He can't design another $1 million worth of road in the next.
Okay.
So looking to only do 3 million, regardless of either option. It's $3 million in the first year because that's the capacity we have and what they've planned for. We would be doing essentially $4 million every year thereafter.
Sorry, I didn't
Nope, that's
understand
all right.
option 1 and 2, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from my perspective, this is kind of the point in time, you know, we had talked about this in the budget cycle, but this has been an ongoing discussion in this group for years now, the underfunding of our capital needs, street programs and the things that we know are hanging on the wall that need to be done. You know, you go back, I don't know if it's 10 or 12 years ago when we issued that piece of debt to fund those things at that time that we weren't able to do just because they're too big. Their price tags are too large, so we, at that point, picked a point in time and said, enough's enough, we're gonna do this. I think we've gotten to that point here now, we realize where we are as a community, that we've got these financial needs. We saw when we did the safety service move last year, that there's a program, this debt levy exemption is a program that gives a very elegant solution, very manageable impact on the taxing side of the situation. It's very effective, very efficient. And I think at this point in time, it really gives us a good opportunity to address some long-term needs, put the city on a footing where we're going to finally have an ability to address our long-term capital needs, have a planning mechanism to do it, the funding to do it. That's very reasonable. You can see from the cumulative cost standpoint, I think any resident can say, over the course of time, if we spend this amount of money and we're going to see these things finally taken care of and managed and maintained over time for our community, I think that no one is going to say that this is foolishly done. I think it's a very effective program and the right time to do it. So Steve and I asked Max to be a little more aggressive in the funding of this program when we reviewed this at personnel last year. So he came back with this option to begin the $4 million program beginning next year's budget cycle, and I'm fully in support of that.
I think, Ken. Chris?
I agree with everything that's been said. I fully support the 4 million project.
I would agree, and, you know, Alderman Kurkowski made a great point. I mean, we're gonna do this, these are hard decisions. They're never fun decisions to spend this kind of money, or put it away. But what we're doing is we're aiding the citizens and future councils that are here. It's really the job of what we're doing. So I think this is the time to do it. We're getting things in order. This is just one step in the process, so I agree, I would do the 4 million as well.
Mayor, I should have said this first go around, but this is another project that just is a testament to the ability of our staff to come up with a great way to fund something. I mean, with the public safety plan was one thing, but you know, I think Andrew and Max kind of had an idea how to do it this go around, but compliment, thanks to Matt to come up with this plan for years down the road to fix the roads, and then get with Max and Andrew to make it come to fruition in the financial sort of ways.
Great, is there any further discussion or comments? If none, let's proceed with a motion on 16.
Bill move to approve the Enhanced Surface Transportation Rehabilitation Program funded at option number 2 at $4 million beginning 2026.
Clark seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
And item 17 is the License Committee, and I'll give that over to Alderman Kirkowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to read the items on tonight's Common Council report. Does anybody have any questions, cares, or concerns? All right, seeing none, Kirkowski make a motion to grant the various license requests as listed on the February 17, 2025 License Committee report.
Clark seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
And item 18 is our vendor summary report for February 12th, 2025. The amount of $712,401.44. Of this, $56,305.84 will be for year 2024, with your remaining $656,101.60 affecting 2025. Please take a look at your packet, and any questions, please just take the floor with the question.
Were the doors at Lake Vista broken by something or someone, or were they just needed to be replaced?
That's just wear and tear. Elements are a big thing down at Lake Vista, so it was time to replace those doors.
Thank you.
They actually work a lot better.
It's a big improvement, yeah.
Yeah, the door actually opens now, so I feel like you had to pull on it.
There's no further discussion. Motion.
Bill move to approve the February 12th, 2025 vendor summary report in the amount of $712,401.44.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderwoman Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
And item 19 is consideration of a motion to convene in a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.85, to discuss the following. A, Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub G, to consider possible settlement of a claim by Richard L. Johnson as a result of a motor vehicle accident with the city vehicle on October 24th, 2024, at the intersection of South Howell Avenue and East Putes Road. President Gale.
Thank you, Mayor. Gale moves to convene in the closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.85, to discuss the following. A, Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub G, to consider possible settlement of the claim of Richard L. Johnson as a result of a motor vehicle accident with the city vehicle on October 24th, 2024, at the intersection of South Howell Avenue and East Putes Road.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
We'll now convene into closed session and return at its conclusion. Thank you. We'll now consider a motion to reconvene into open session.
Thank you, Mayor. Gale moves to reconvene in the open session.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Item 21 is a consideration to take appropriate action if required.
Mayor, if I might, my understanding is that the council would like to move to approve settlement of the claim of Richard L. Johnson as a result of a motor vehicle accident with a city vehicle on October 24, 2024 at the intersection of South Howell Avenue and East Putes Road. Upon receipt of the signed settlement and release of claims and the necessary paperwork.
Marshall, move.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Wonderful. Before we adjourn, we experienced our first significant snowfall of the season. And I really want to thank our Department of Public Works for getting out there and doing the plowing. I got nothing but pats on the back on behalf of the citizens here for the job that DPW did. If any of you guys and ladies are out there from DPW, thank you. Everybody notices your work when things like this go on in the city, and it was spectacular, the job you guys did. I can't imagine there was a complaint out there, so thank you. I know the hours were rough, but keep up the good work. Thank you. If there's no further business, we will look for a motion to adjourn.
Marshall, move to adjourn.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
All right. Night, everybody. Thank you for watching. Have a great week.